Just a couple of points on KYC AML.
Yeah.
First, I will be the first to say that it's a total fugazi, and I am very much not a huge fan of the way the current KYC AML regulations are applied. I think they're quite stupid. They're all sizzle, no steak, and you can see that with the evidence in the sense that, like for instance, from a Canadian perspective, last year we had over 12.5 million um, reports to our FinCEN FinTrack, but we actually had a decrease in reporting actions. So we had almost a tenfold increase in how many reports were made, but a decrease in the amount of enforcement actions. So and one of our banks, TD, just got hit with one of the largest money laundering scams in the world. And all right, let me just shine my soapbox here for a second and just keep going. And then you can play this game where you can take the complaint, the FinCEN complaint from Binance and TD, and then you can switch everything up and you can read them and you can guess which one is Binance and which one is TD. And I will really try to bet if you guys can actually notice which one is different. However, you actually had jail time enforced upon CZ and not upon the executives of TD, right? So I think that's a clear example of, a misapplication of law here. We're just asking for fairness, and that's another kind of example of it not being fair. Now, going back to it, from a technical standpoint,
That's
I'm
a
going to be like
tremendous example. That's a
huh?
tremendous. That's a tremendous example. I mean, that is just so messed up. Good God. Yeah.
Well, it is, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like, so the bank executives have moral hazard, but the crypto executives don't. It's just unacceptable, really.
Yeah.
And but back to it, when does kind of KYC AML rules apply, right? It applies in certain specific instances, right? And we don't want to really expand the scope of its application from a certain perspective, right? So, for example, back to our concept around tokens and LLC units. Let's be really clear what's happening, and this is going to sound really legalese, but it's important, right? What's being issued is an LLC interest that is evidenced with a token, right? That's a key difference between the token in and of itself being issued. And on top of which, if you're doing a Reg D or other type of private market exempt distribution, there isn't a qualification within the Bank Secrecy Act, and the same thing goes with Canada, that you have to do KYC AML, right? I think it's best practice on a risk-based approach to do it anyway, right? But it doesn't necessarily need to happen in certain instances where it isn't met. And Israel can correct me if I'm wrong here, because that's how it is in Canada, right? And we've seen this from a Tornado Cash perspective, right? Where they attempted to apply, right, these concepts on entities that were not, deemed financial institutions, right? And the fact that you have a decentralized protocol that is able to transact and you're now applying, anti-money laundering rules around it without any effective control of those protocols, right, was actually from the most recent case in November shown that there wasn't an application of BSA or AML rules onto decentralized protocols as well. So I'm always a bit wary about kind of the encroachment of KYC AML to areas where it shouldn't go, because again, I think it's a gross inefficiency. And I don't think Hamas is or anyone else is laundering stuff through you no more than they're laundering stuff through TD, right? So
Yeah, for sure. And you always see in the press um, articles where if Binance or Tether are mentioned, in the same paragraph, it's always like terrorism financing. But the big banks, that's not the case. But Israel, maybe to just finish on this topic, what are you seeing in terms of like best practices for KYC AML from a US perspective?
I mean, I could reiterate what Herwig and Toufic said. I agree. KYC AML is a big mess, and not only is it a big mess in terms of what's required from the information and how many times that you have to put that information in, but the percentage of money laundering that is actually catching, I believe, just came out as less than 1%. I think the system has to be reassessed and rechecked. And and obviously, if we could do something on chain with a token that's constantly updating itself, would be highly beneficial, both from the U.S. perspective and from a global perspective.